So let's start today by addressing the bruised elephant in the room. I keep my ironing board underneath my bed to keep it out of the way, and I needed to get it the other day. So I lie on the floor and reach under my bed to grab it, and it's a little further than I thought it was. So I kind of scooch toward my bed a little bit, or I meant to scooch a little bit. Turns out I scooched a lot of it because I just bonked my head on the side of my bed. It's a small little thing, but I was bleeding just profusely from it. And I now have this, built-in eyeshadow for a couple days. And I'm an idiot. Today I wanted to talk to you really quickly about Hausfrau by Jill Alexander Essbaum. This is a book that I've owned since 2015, I think, and I've never read it. And since one of my goals this year is to read as many of my own books as possible, I've discovered half of the shelves behind me are books that I have not read, and half are books that I have read. Quite literally, the top half is unread, the bottom half is read. And while I have spent the last couple of years unloading a lot of my unread books that I realize I'm probably never going to read, selling them to used bookstores, that sort of thing, I've always kept Hausfrau for two reasons. One, the cover is extraordinary. Just look at that thing. And a really good friend of mine, Carolyn Oliver, she used to run a book blog called Rosemary and Reading Glasses. It was wonderful, and I will always remember her talking about this book. This is a book that isn't well loved. It has a 3.25 rating on Goodreads, I think, which is pretty low for Goodreads. But I remember it striking a chord with Carolyn. And I'm so glad I kept it, and I'm so glad I read it, because this book is very sad, this book is very messy, but it's like the sad messiness of it all that makes it so good. It's a book that's been compared to Madame Bovary, it's been compared to Anna Karenina, and it is the story of an American woman in her mid to late 30s. Her name is also Anna. She lives in Switzerland with her husband, Bruno. He's an investment banker, I think. And their 3 children. She pretty much has no friends. She has a really hard time speaking the language. So she's having a hard time connecting with people and kind of putting down roots there and feeling comfortable. So she's, hitting the end of her 30s, and she's finding herself really, really sad and alone. And what I love about this book is that it's completely about a woman spiraling due to depression. It never talks about depression. I don't think the word comes up a single time in this book, and yet it is on every page of this. Anna finds Bruno, her husband, quite cold. She finds the people there quite cold. She's having a hard time. She's struggling with the language, and so she takes a language class, and it's there that she meets some people, and she meets a man, and she ends up having an affair, and then she ends up having another affair. And there's a particularly chilling line in this book that is, adultery is alarmingly easy. And that's a big chunk of Hausfrau. It's about this woman who has made this moral choice or has crossed this moral threshold, and just showing you how quickly the whole thing can unravel, or how easily your life can just be taken away by this thing. She finds cheating very easy. She finds cheating very gratifying. She's not really sure why. And there's a part in this book that describes the fact that she loves sex, but she doesn't really love sex. Anna loved and didn't love sex. Anna needed and didn't need it. Her relationship with sex was a convoluted partnership that rose from both her passivity and an unassailable desire to be distracted and wanted. She wanted to be wanted. And I think that's why this book is really interesting, and I think it's really stuck with me, and why it sticks with the people who really get it. It's this idea that this need to be desired, or this need to fill that hole in you, both literally and figuratively for some people. It can be such a powerful feeling. It can be such a destructive feeling if you don't deal with it well. But most importantly, it's the symptom. It's not the cause. It's not the sickness. One thing I really liked about this book is that while it's told in the third person, every now and then there are these snippets of Anna seeing her therapist. They're just very short conversations, but they're kind of interjected all throughout the novel, which to me really illustrated Essbaum's concern with the psychology of the situation, that this isn't as simple as someone would think it is from the outside, that it's about long-held trauma, it's about currently experienced trauma, it's about really big stuff and Anna just happens to be dealing with it in a poor way, but a poor way that I think a lot of people can understand or sympathize with or even empathize with. Like, she is not a likable character, but she's very sympathetic. I wouldn't even say she's not likable. She's just doing stuff that a lot of people would find morally repugnant. And it just bums me out to see a book like this get like a 3.2 rating on Goodreads. It's just one of those situations where it's like, I didn't like her, so it's not a good book. It's like, if that's what you're like, don't read this book. It's not about that. If you're interested in exploring depression, if you're interested in exploring depression in women, if you're interested in exploring depression in mothers, in late 30s people, and all the disasters that can spin out from that, I would recommend Hausfrau big time. And I would also recommend you listen to it on audiobook. I own the physical copy, and I read about half of this physically, and I listened to half of it with the audiobook, and the audiobook is really, really good. And before we go here, I just want to talk about this cover one more time, not because it's just so beautiful, but because of how smart it is. You can't really tell on camera here, but it does have this kind of shimmering effect on the cover, but kind of the background of this is kind of lost if you at a certain angle. It's like there's like 5 or 6 main roses in the front of this, and they're beautiful and they're blooming, and that's what catches your eye right away. But the more you look at the cover, the more you notice in behind there are wilting flowers, and the more you look at it, the less beautiful it becomes, or the more damage you see in the image. And it's so perfect, because Anna's life from the outside, if you just take 1 second to look at it, it looks perfect. But the more you look at it, the more you understand about it, the more damaged it becomes. So I just thought this is just it was already one of the most beautiful covers I've ever seen, and now it's just one of the smartest covers I've ever seen. And it says a lot about the thought and care that I think went into this book. And if any of what I said sounds interesting to you, I would wholeheartedly recommend this book. It's really good. It's really smart. There's a ton of sex in it. So if you love literary romance, if you love some like literary smut in your day, I would also recommend you read this, because it's well written, but there's just a ton of sex in it. And with that, I will let you go. My name is Rick. I hope you enjoy Hausfrau, and I will talk to you in a couple days. Bye.